Welcome to Secret Life Gardens, December 2020. I'm Lydia Bissler. This here is an Acer palmatum bloodgood, Japanese maple. Now that it is winter, all the leaves have gone off of the trees. This is a great time to start your winter pruning. I like to kick off my pruning season with pruning the Japanese maples. We have 6 Japanese maples on our property. Clearly we like them. There are also a fair amount of them already here when we bought the property, as well as 1 vine maple, which is a native here to the Portland, Oregon area. This particular variety, the bloodgood variety, is a really great variety if you live in a colder climate. It's actually hardy to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which is zones 4 through 8 in the US. We're in 8B here in Portland. So we're kind of on that edge of what it can take for warmth. You'll note that there's a giant Doug fir behind me that really shields us from the southwestern sun, so we actually don't get a ton of full heat baking down onto this tree in the summer, which keeps that really nice red burgundy foliage the whole summer through, turning it into bright crimson in the fall. So to really light up those leaves, I like to prune in the winter to open up the branch structure a little bit more, especially at the top. It starts to get kind of thick with branches and summer growth. So I'm going to go through, show you how to make some of those cuts in the winter to now stimulate spring growth. This would also be a time if you really want to rejuvenate a tree. This already has a pretty good shape, but if you have something that looks a little bit more like a cousin it, or has a lot more branches and places you maybe don't want them, winter is really the time to do that pruning where you're cutting bigger branches and more structure out of the tree. I start by going through a section of the tree and removing any dead wood. On acers is clearly lighter colored and will even snap off in your fingers. Then I remove crossing branches and branches growing towards the center of the tree. Bloodgood is a more upright variety, but in some varieties of acers, crossing or twisted branches might be a part of the look, or maybe it's something that you like. So just keep that in mind when you look at your specific tree. Next, I'll remove any awkwardly long branches or overly crowded areas in this tree because I've pruned it quite a few times. That's mostly towards the top of the tree. Next, I'll prune for shape. Sometimes I'll step back and consider the overall look you're going for. This tree, I know the shape pretty well, but if it was a newer tree, I'd probably be standing back a bunch of times. I like to remove a fair amount of branches as our trees grow so much every year, and this winter pruning encourages more healthy growth in the spring. In the summer, I'll lightly go through everything again to further open up the plant when it's in leaf. I always underestimate how much tree I need to remove to create the look that I want. It's hard to tell how dense certain areas will be until the tree is in leaf, honestly. That being said, winter is the time for any major renovation pruning. That's a good start for the backyard acers. After I finish in the back, I'll move to the front where we have 3 additional acers or Japanese maple trees. One is an upright lace leaf, Acer palmatum sureyu. This one is green throughout the summer and then brilliant amber colored in the fall. And then we have 2 more lace leaves. They're both weeping varieties though. One Acer palmatum crimson queen, as you can guess from the name, it's red year round. The other Acer palmatum flavensis is green in the summer and then yellow-orange in the fall. After I finish the acers, then I'll go through to the birch trees and so on and so on. The birch trees, I do pretty simply just uplimbing a little bit if there's any new lower growth. Like I mentioned before, we don't get a lot of full sun in this yard, so as much as I can encourage sun, I'll try. So I'll just bring them up a little bit there. Now, winter pruning encourages spring growth, but it can really take a while to see those results. And sometimes it's nice, especially this time of year, to do something with instant color. That's why in December, I love to make a wreath. The Yuletime, Christmas, solstice wreath, whatever you want to call it, has a long tradition, far longer than anything that Christianity would have you believe. The Greeks and Romans, for example, used to use laurel wreaths as a sign of accomplishment. They also made harvest wreaths in every fall. There's a long-standing tradition in Northern Europe as well of bringing in greens during Yule time. So I've collected quite a few number of greens from our local forest. If you live in Oregon, check out rules about harvesting in your forest as well as Washington. These all came from the Tillamook forest, plus some from our Christmas trees. This is a grand fir here. This is from the bottom of our tree. It's super fragrant, really beautiful, long, even needle structure. This is western hemlock. This came from the Tillamook forest. You'll see it's light colored on the underside, and then two different sized needles on a hemlock. That's a great way of identifying it. Solal, an evergreen native to the Portland, Oregon area, holds its structure nice and well, kind of like eucalyptus, only native. This is Doug fir here, very classic tree in our area. It's starting to grow little buds here on the tips that you can see here. Also really fragrant, love Doug fir. And then incense cedar, not a true cedar like you'd find in the Mediterranean, but our native variety of cedar, false variety, I guess, of cedar. Also has a really beautiful smell, and you'll see that cedar has scales instead of needles, which is a great way of identifying it. And then I have a couple other things here that I'll add to the wreath. This is Nigella, African Queen. This variety grew this summer in the garden, have a ton of extra dried little seed heads. Thought it would give it a cool little bit of texture. And then for a finishing touch, I dehydrated some grapefruit rounds and some orange rounds here. So I'll show you how to make a wreath, and then we'll get going. Okay, so to make your wreath, you're first going to need some sort of structure. It could be something a little bit more decorative, grapevines, maybe a beautiful gold ring. This is just a wreath form that I've had for years and reuse all the time. And then you're also going to want a long bit of floral wire. You're going to use one continuous piece of wire to create your entire wreath, so it should be pretty long. And you'll start by making kind of like a knot at the end. So just weave it through. Get it nice and tight. And you'll want to end up here with the wire on the outside. And then you're going to make your first swag here. So taking a few different varieties. I've started here with this bit. So this is that noble fir, the hemlock, the Doug fir, the cedar, solal, and nigella on the top. So it's a little bit long. I always end up overdoing it, to be honest, and then I trim it back with my pruners at the end, so you can always see how it turns out. So I'm just going to place it kind of more upright to start with, and then I'll show you kind of how it goes from here. So you're going to wrap this around 3 times. 1, 2. And then third time, get it nice and tight. Remember that all of the material you use will dry a little bit, so you really want to hold on to it, and then start with the floral wreath on the the floral wire on the outside, and then go from there making some more swags. We'll do one going outwards, we'll do one going in, out, all the way around. Continue to make bundles or mini swags with your greens. Then one by one, place them on your wreath form. Alternate their angle, with one splaying outwards, then one inwards, and so on. Try to keep the size and spacing fairly consistent as you move along the wreath, continuously wrapping each bundle 3 times with your wire and always ending with your wire bundle on the outside of your wreath form. When you get to the end of your wreath, back where you started, you may need to make a couple of smaller bundles to tuck one in facing in each direction. Once your wreath is totally filled in and your last bundle is secured, cut your wire, leaving a length to weave back through the form, just like how we started. This essentially creates a little knot to hold everything together. Then, examine the shape of your wreath. You may have some sparse areas that need a little extra greenery, or spaces that are too thick and need a little trim. Finally, place any finishing touches on your wreath, like a bow, or in my case, dried citrus. And that's the wreath making process that you could really do any time of year. Although this time of year it's really wonderful to bring the color and the scent of the outdoors to your front door or on the wall inside of your house or apartment. And not every job that's done this time of year is quite as fun, although I would say it is just as rewarding this time of year to take a look at all of your gardening tools and really give them a deep clean to prepare for spring seed starting. In January and February, I like to start as many seeds as possible, which means that in December, I go through and clean everything, trying to take advantage of this quiet time of year to get everything as sanitary as possible for the upcoming grow season. So I clean my humidity domes, my seed trays, my pots, everything. I'm really trying to reduce my plastic usage as well, and one of the best ways to reduce your plastic usage is to reuse the plastic things that you already have, which means that even if I go to a nursery and buy a plant, I will reuse that pot over and over and over. Even if there's a small crack in there, it's probably fine. I'll reuse it until it's literally no longer usable, and then I'll recycle it, which you can do here in Portland. Check your city or county rules on recycling where you live. If it's something that I've purchased, a tray or a pot, I'll reuse that as well. I love the brand Bootstrap Farmer. Check out their products, they're amazing. But let me just give you a look as to how I clean everything and try to sanitize it in the most ecologically friendly way possible. So first I'll start by knocking off any dirt and rinsing it off really well. You want to actually clean and sanitize the pots, not the dirt that's on the pots. After that, I'll spray everything down with a solution of 3% hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is actually a pretty green cleaning agent. It breaks down quickly into water, unlike bleach, which can have some residual effects in your garden or in your waterways that are pretty negative. But because hydrogen peroxide breaks down into water so quickly, make sure that you use a fresh, unopened bottle of hydrogen peroxide to clean with, otherwise you're just using water and not hydrogen peroxide. So fill a spray bottle with it, spray all my pots out and in, and then let them sit for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you can rinse them again if you'd like, or just wipe them down or put them away. Now this method isn't foolproof. It's not completely, technically fully sanitized, but it will help as much as possible getting rid of any mold or diseases, and I think that's good enough for me. Honestly, cleaning the pots is not one of my favorite jobs, but once it's done, I feel like I can really begin planning for spring. Last year for New Year's Eve, I planned out my vegetable garden for the year. This year I plan to do the same, especially because of the year that 2020 has been. This is a great time to start to look through catalogs, figure out what seeds you want to buy, sort through any seeds you may have saved over the year, figure out what you have, maybe what you'd like a little bit more of, and place your orders nice and early. In 2020, seed sales went up significantly. I'm going to assume that they'll be high again this year, and I would encourage you to get a jump start on seed ordering so you can get exactly what you want. Now there are a few other jobs that I like to get done in December. That includes sharpening your tools, something that I already posted a reel about on Instagram, spreading mulch and compost. Around Christmas time, towards the end of the year, we'll get some big truckloads of compost and spread them on our vegetable gardens and some on our borders as well. And I encourage you to continue to keep your plants warm in case of any cold snaps. Here in Portland, cold air means dry air, so the best way to actually keep your plants warm is just to water them. Well, that's it for December. Wishing you the best for the rest of your 2020. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay home. Take advantage of this quiet time to really get some rest, eat some good food, and I'll see you in January 2021.